Are there some...
I don't know if it fell down a while back, but it's all good. We'll just keep rolling.
Welcome listeners to the podcast Communicate with the World, sponsored by Europe Direct. Don't believe tourists, we ask the locals.
Hey man,
Hey dude, good to see you, pal.
amazing to see you and amazing to have you here in my podcast.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Thomson, you're probably the most international guy which I can have in my...
I wouldn't go that far, but no, I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you.
Well, I'm really happy to have you here. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
For sure. I mean, as Marco put it, international bringing, that sort of runs through my background. Grew up to expat parents in a few different places as a third culture kid, and then at quite a young age moved to the UK, specifically to the land of the Red Dragons as it's known, Wales. Or in Welsh, Cymru. So grown up there since I was 10, which is home. Did my university in England and then sort of worked around the place a bit before arriving in Vienna a few years ago, where I had a brilliant 3 years. And now this is my
Where
first...
we're here now, right?
Exactly, yeah. The rest is history. So yeah, great to be back, you know, in my old stomping grounds, and yeah.
Yeah, happy to see you, and even more happy to have you in my podcast.
I'm delighted, man. It's an honor.
So you're very international, but as you said, your home is Wales, Cardiff. So let's speak about Wales and Cardiff in this episode. Yeah, you're an insider. You know a lot about Wales. I got that with all the meetings which we had. You told me a lot about Wales and Cardiff. So what's the most exciting thing about Wales? You love your home country, I know that. You told me so many things already. So what's the thing what you love the most?
I think the unique thing about Wales, and you know, British culture in itself has many stereotypes, you know, dry, sarcastic humor, stuck-up people, etc. But actually with Wales, the culture itself is just so warm and friendly. I think a lot of it has to do with the people. It's just a very sort of welcoming, open kind of ambience as well. So that's what I really appreciate about Wales. It's a very sort of chilled, laid-back kind of atmosphere, particularly where I've grown up in Cardiff, the capital city. It's got a rich multicultural background as well, which many people don't realize. Hence why many people are shocked, even fellow British people, when I say where I'm originally from, you know. They don't expect that, you know, they see a non-white person from there. But Wales actually has a very big multicultural past, especially Cardiff. And yeah, as I said, it's the people, it's a unique culture, they have their own language, which we can get into. So in many ways it stands out to, you know, a lot of other parts of the UK. And of course they make up one of the, you know, as one of the 4 home nations alongside Scotland, Northern Ireland, and of course the English, who, you know, we're not on best terms with.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's what we know, yeah.
Exactly. It's like the Austrians and Germans, you know, you have a friendly rivalry.
Well, true. Yeah. Pretty cool, nice to know and to hear. Tell me more about Cardiff, the capital. What's so special there? What's your secret spots there? Are there some special places where everyone should see if we travel there?
100%. I mean, Cardiff is somewhere I would certainly recommend to pass through if you ever are in the southwest of the UK or if you're heading to Wales. It's a perfect sort of stopover for about 3 to 4 days, I would say, to really view the city. In many ways, kind of similar to Vienna, it's easy to get around. I mean, in terms of public transport, there's only buses, so it's not so big that, you know, we have metros and Straßenbahns and so on. But it's a very easy to navigate city with one sort of main central area, High Street, which is very symptomatic and common of British towns and cities as well. But there's one big center with the unique aspect of having a castle. So Cardiff is unique in that sense because this castle dates back around 2,000 years from the Roman era. So that's got an iconic spot in the center of the city. The main nightlife is situated there. Cardiff also has 3 universities, so also in that sense, the nightlife is very good. You get a large variety of options, let's say. And also it's a coastal city, which is something I've quite enjoyed growing up, you know, next to the sea as well. There's lots of activities you can do, paddleboarding, rowing, etc. We have a river that runs through the city as well. A lot of good nature spots, green parks. And also we have a brilliant bayfront as well, which is known as Atlantic Wharf. Lots of cool bars and restaurants that are dotted around. It's only about 15 minutes, 20 minutes walk from the city center itself, which shows again how easy it is to get around, and it's not so massive. And the bay area is very nice, you know, especially if you go out in the evening for a good meal, some drinks. And the walk you can do around the pier front as well is exceptional. In good weather, of course, which, again, being in the UK, you can't always predict.
Yeah, everything sounds amazing, but the weather is always unpredictable, right? Which months would you recommend to go there?
I would definitely recommend, like, in summertime for sure. Yeah. In fact, obviously, this year, 2022, has been unique because, you know, all across Europe,
you've had waves.
These mad heat waves. I mean, to be honest, British people in general, the moment you get about 15, 20 degrees Celsius, it's like shorts out, bikinis out, you know, sun's out, guns out, basically. But no, this year's been particularly hot. But no, I would say generally, I think for, you know, good atmosphere, when things are active and a lot is happening, I would say any time from spring, actually, even, like Easter time, April, all the way through to September. In winter time, it's not so bad, but again, there's less going on, let's put it that way. Again, in the city center area, we have like small Christmas markets. I mean, actually modeled a little bit on Austrian and Bavarian culture, but again...
Wow, honestly?
Yeah, we actually have a German Christmas market.
Never experienced that.
Yeah, it's not too bad, okay. But it doesn't quite compare to the authentic, you know, over here. Yeah. But also we have like a big theme park that goes up in front of the city hall, or like the Rathaus, basically, in Cardiff. That's quite nice in winter time. But yeah, again, in short, my recommended period would be spring to summer.
Yeah. But you spoke already about the nightlife. Is it a typical pub life, which we know from the UK, like which starts in the late afternoon, I would say, around 6, 7? Is it the same there?
It's quite similar, yeah. I mean, there is, I wouldn't say compared to some other parts of the UK, like a horrible binge drinking culture, but you start young, right? And also it's kind of common growing up, you know, with friends and stuff already from when you're in high school to go to pubs. So that's very much in the culture. So yeah, generally, you know, people start early. What you'll find quite different, particularly in the English speaking world, not just the UK, is that places aren't open as late as you might expect. Yeah. So that is the one downside I have to say.
That's the biggest trouble which I had on all my trips to the UK.
Yes, you were saying, yeah, which unfortunately is one thing you won't find different in Wales. It would be 9 or 10 p.m. Yeah. And then usually last orders by 11. And then people would start going to the clubs, again, a bit earlier than, say, in Austria or other parts of Europe. You'd probably head to the nightclubs or whatever around 11, maybe midnight. That's because most places close by 2 a.m. Welsh people are very approachable by and large, and if you can find some good locals and go for an after party, then you're sorted, you know. Yeah, it's just putting yourself out there, and as I said, it's perfect for like around 3 to 4 days, you know, if you're solo traveling. And this is just for Cardiff, of course. I mean, Wales itself as a country, there's so much more to it in terms of nature, activities you can do.
That's actually a good point. Let's speak a little bit about the land side. Yeah, you don't have big mountains. I know the biggest mountain is Penhaven in Scotland, so of the UK. So I guess there are less mountains in Wales.
Yes, I mean obviously incomparable to, you know, growing up in Central Europe or to the Alps and the other big ranges. Yeah, so in the UK, as you said, Marco, the biggest one which you did recently and I did is Ben Nevis in Scotland. Wales actually has the second biggest mountain. It's about 800 meters, so it's nothing for you guys, but it's called Snowdon.
Yeah, it always depends where you start. Like from the sea level up to 800 meters, it's not that bad,
It's not too bad, and again, it depends on the climb as well. It's actually located in one of the 2 big national parks in Wales. So one is called Snowdonia, which is more in the north of the country, for people maybe who know sort of their football and stuff, closer to like Liverpool and Manchester, but the other side of the border. But in the south of the country, close to the capital, Cardiff, where I'm from, we have the other bigger national park, which is called Brecon Beacons. Great spot if you want to go for hiking and explore nature, some great lakes there as well. And then the further west you go, and again, sticking close to the coastline, there's some great beaches, places like Tenby, Porthcawl. You can visit these very gorgeous, small sort of fishing villages and towns. where you can also go camper vanning. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Yeah, I am familiar with it, but
great.
Not in UK so far.
Yeah, I mean, but this is a great spot actually. Yeah. And then the section of Wales called Pembrokeshire, which is right at the edge of the country, facing out towards the Irish Sea. The coastline there is beautiful in terms of, again, more beaches, but if you are into activities like surfing and so on as well, it's a great spot.
You even can surf there?
Yeah, you can. There's some good spots like Haverfordwest. So for any adrenaline junkies, amongst your audience.
Hopefully it's not embarrassing that I didn't know that.
No. I was hoping you would. No. But no, maybe on your bucket list next.
Yeah, well, obviously I need to meet you back at home.
Of course, exactly. Always, man, doors always open. I'd love to show you.
Great, I'm happy to hear that, and I definitely have to do that. So, well, we have the land side, we have the capital. Mm-hmm. Tell us something about security. How is it in the city or on the land side?
Yeah, I mean, generally, Cardiff is a very safe city. Not so dissimilar to Vienna and most of the places in Austria, let's say. It's a very safe city, easy to get around, as I said. But I guess like any city, there are maybe some smaller areas which, tourists wouldn't really go to. But again, apart from that, nothing risky. Obviously, when you're there as a traveler and a visitor, especially if you're alone, just, like you would anywhere you travel to, just be on your, be sensible. When you go clubbing, for example, as well, if you get drunk people about, it's not a violent city by any means, compared to, for example, parts of Scotland you went to. It doesn't have a culture like that, but just be sensible, really, And as I said, locals are very friendly and open-minded, so it's easy to make friends. And a big student population in Cardiff too, so.
By the way, what's the most famous sport in Wales?
By far, rugby. Rugby is rugby is the national game. So for those of you who aren't familiar, it's this violent sport where you get 15 men on each side and they're just fighting and beating the shit out of each other to try and score points. It's like American football without the extra padding, but on steroids as well. It's a pretty intense sport, but it's something you are naturally, growing up with, especially in high school and stuff. Disclaimer, it's not my go-to sport, not because it's, too brutal, but I'm more of a football guy. But rugby is the main sport. Football is very popular. Wales has just got to the World Cup for the first time.
Congrats against Austria.
Yes, hard luck to you guys, but hey, the best team won on the day. But no, it's really exciting for, the country is only 3.5, 4 million people. So for a small country like us, after I think 60, 70 years, it's amazing to go to Qatar. But I would definitely encourage, to everyone. It's a great place. If you visit the UK, it's also only about 2 to 3 hours from London. 2 hours by train, 3.5 by bus. So it's very accessible. Definitely place worth checking out, Cardiff.
So you would recommend to fly to London and go by train to Cardiff?
Cardiff actually has a small airport, but again, I emphasize small. Most of the connections are like to Spain and Amsterdam and Dublin. Going from Austria specifically, you're better off flying to London, maybe checking for connections to airports that are closer, like Birmingham or Bristol. They might have the odd flight, but more frequent connections will be London, right? So, and then from there, 2 to 3 hours, you're in Cardiff.
Cool.
And you'll notice the difference as soon as you cross, because there's a huge bridge which connects England and Wales, called the Severn Bridge.
Yeah, quite famous.
Which is like a suspension bridge, one of the longest in Europe.
Yeah, well, very cool. So let's speak a little bit about the price level. What's the price for one pint in average for the bars?
It's quite affordable. Wales is Cardiff as well. I mean, you'll find it's a little bit more in the city, but we're talking, let's say in euros, maybe about 4.50 euros for a pint, which is quite cheap. It's about
4 or 5 euro.
4 to 5 euros for like a pint, yeah. Whereas in London, that's like almost 2-3 times more. So the average, So Cardiff is comparatively very, very affordable. It's not super expensive at all.
Yeah. We spoke also about the train from London to Cardiff. Do you know what's the price, more or less?
Yeah. My recommendation would be to book an off-peak ticket. As a return. So for example, if you're doing a UK tour, if you're doing like London to Cardiff, you can do an off-peak return, which is basically, it works out a lot cheaper. works out a lot cheaper because I think you pay about 30% less. And that goes from usually Paddington. Paddington Station in London is the connection to Cardiff Central. And we're talking around €65 if you book the off-peak return. Whereas if you book separately, we're talking about €50 each way.
Each way?
Yeah,
well,
so you're better off doing
really
the combination, you know, for about 65 to 70. But then you have to go off-peak, which is sort of like outside of 6 to 9 a.m. and outside of 4 to 7 p.m. So, you know, like you avoid the rush hour before and after work.
Oh, yeah, good advice.
Which is good for travelers.
Know,
yeah, because it's less busy trains.
Less busy trains and cheaper.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly.
That's what we want. Exactly our price level.
Exactly, but if you want to be even more economical, if you're on a budget, you can easily take the bus for much cheaper. So there's Flixbus, there's Mega, which you'd be familiar with. Yeah. There's Megabus, but my recommendation in the UK in general would be National Express. They tend to be a more consistent standard. You can get tickets if you book in advance for about €5 from London to Cardiff.
Honestly, €5?
€5, yeah.
Well, come on, what a deal.
Exactly, exactly. The trade-off to
So if I'm going to meet you, I will.
Yeah, do that one, one. But it's obviously a bit longer than the train. That's the thing. It might be a bit more tiring. The train's about 2 hours. Bus can be 3.5 to 4 in good traffic.
Pretty fine for me.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, thanks for this advice.
No worries. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, we already have all the topics more or less what I want to know. Yeah. Normally I ask some words about the languages which are important in your country, but...
What do you want to know?
That's a big advantage that Wales has the most spoken language around the world, English. But
yes, exactly.
Do you know some words in Welsh?
Sure. You can say diolch yn fawr, which is vielen dank, or like thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Diolch. Try it.
Diolch.
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 So the thing with Welsh is it comes a lot from the throat.
Okay. I try it again.
Diolch.
Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr.
You'll get there. You'll get there. Also, if you want to say cheers, so like prost, it would be yakida.
Yakida.
Yakida. Yeah.
Yeah. At least I got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got all the most important things. Yeah.
Exactly. But like, yeah, there's other small lingo I can teach you. But as I said, everyone speaks English. It's easy to navigate. But yeah, they'll appreciate the locals. You know, if you say a few words, they'll be impressed.
Yeah, for sure.
And interesting fact: the only other place outside of Wales where Welsh is actually spoken is in Argentina. There's a part of Argentina called Patagonia, this region.
Well, that's quite famous now, even with the brand and also
exactly,
with the mountains.
Exactly. Where I think historically they had a lot of Welsh people, native indigenous,
okay.
So the white British Welsh people who moved there, I think to work in the mining industry or something. So it's very unique where they still have to this day like villages and towns in that region with Welsh and I guess Spanish there in Argentina.
Embarrassing, another point what I didn't know, so I already learned a lot of
new
things.
New fact for the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So many new facts already in this podcast. So quite embarrassing for me that I didn't know all this information, but thanks a lot for that, sharing that with us. So is there anything else what you really want to share with our listeners?
I would say, honestly, put yourself out there. Travel is one of the best things you can do. It's good for the soul. It's a good way to broaden your horizons. And a great way to make new connections, you know, and Wales is second to none in that respect. If you're in the UK, it's if you have the time as well, definitely worth visiting. There's a lot to the country, but also certainly my hometown, my home city, I should say, in Cardiff, so definitely would recommend for a great experience. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, man, speaking on this.
Same. Thanks a lot, man, again. It was a big pleasure, and what a big informations are coming up.
Well, now I'm expecting more Austrians to visit Wales, and maybe an Austrian consulate to open in Cardiff. Let's see.
Yeah, I can promise I will. Can't speak about any other Austrians, but I will do that.
100%, man.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, mate.
Terrific.
What a pleasure to have you here.
Likewise.
Cheers. Don't believe tourists. We ask the locals.